Hello, Latin One. I thought that I would make another video to give you a quick update and talk about a few things. First, as is always the case, those of you who've been going onto Canvas and doing the work that I've put on there for the various chapters, a chapter a week essentially, I am incredibly appreciative. And I would like to encourage everybody, if you have not been completing them, there are not that many things. And there are two reasons why you would benefit tremendously from going onto Canvas, doing the stuff that is there. Even if you are currently satisfied with the grade that you have, you think that that's perfectly fine, I would still encourage you for the second reason. The first is obviously you want to get a better grade, and I can assure you that I will do everything I can and be as most generous as I can with trying to help you out with where you would like to go with your final average and how you perform in Latin 1 as a whole. And so that is first and foremost. Secondly, is that the vast majority of you, and I've said this before, are probably going to end up in Latin 2. And as such, again, everything that we do builds upon previous things. I've said many times before that Latin is very much like math. If you're in calculus and you forget how to do your algebra, it doesn't matter if you know how to do the calculus because you can't do the stuff without the algebra. And it's no different in the next chapter that we have, which I guess will be 22. If you don't remember that puella means girl all the way back from chapter 1, then obviously you're in trouble. Same thing with the forms we have. You can't afford to forget the endings as we move on into Latin 2 next year. And the same thing for the verb forms that we have, and so forth and so on. So again, I would really like to encourage you to engage with the material, to obviously try the multiple choice and the vocab that I've put out for all of the chapters, and to, as much as what you can, do as best as what you can in retaining the material, because it, one, will really benefit you grade-wise, and secondly, it will really benefit you moving into Latin 2 next year. Secondly, at this point, I've put all of the vocabulary quizzes that we have taken this year on Canvas, and for both Latin 1 and Latin 2 and stuff I've got going on for AP Latin, I had no idea of how laborious it would be to put all of that stuff on there. So, moving forward, I don't think that I'm automatically going to put in all the other quizzes. However, I am more than happy, and it would not be a bother, and you would not be bothering or harassing me if you request individually a particular quiz to be made and put on Canvas that you want to take again to try and help out your score from the previous time. I would be more than happy to do it. Just reach out to me via Remind, send me an email, whatever it might be, and I'll be happy to do it. As for all of the quizzes that are already on there, as far as the vocab, just go ahead and take it whenever you would like, and it automatically pops up on Canvas. As I was said before, Canvas is incredibly detailed in its analytics, which is why I know that so many of you have been going on there. I know when you've gone on my page. I know when you've taken a quiz, how long you've spent on it, how long you spent even just looking at the page. All of that stuff is available for me to see, and I really appreciate those of you who've been doing it. Keep alerting me of all my mistakes that I've been making and all of that sort of stuff like that. Also, just like the last week that we were all together in the before the spring break, again this Thursday, there's going to be an opportunity for you to come together as a class with me. Of course, you don't have to, but I'll arrange a Zoom meeting at 1 p.m. I've planned it out that 1 p.m. is Latin 1, 2 p.m. will be Latin 2, 3 p.m. is AP Latin, such that if you have any questions for me individually, if you just want to say hello and that sort of stuff, you certainly can. So I'll be sending out a Zoom invitation for tomorrow, Thursday, April 16th, at 1 p.m. if you would like to just ask any questions or clear anything up or just say hello. I think that that's it. Again, if you have anything that you would like for me to make to put on Canvas, just let me know. But what I didn't want to do was to put in, scores upon scores of hours and so much of the stuff nobody even bothered to retake or even look at. I didn't want to be a waste of my time in that way. So if you would, please, and it won't be a bother, I would love to do it for you, to make up a quiz that you would like to retake. Now, the last thing is at the request of Latin 2, these video messages is going to include the ever popular supplemental bonus. And so we're going to have a supplemental bonus. You can pause the video right now, go get something, a scrap of paper to write on, and without looking up the answers and on your own, as it would be on a Friday on a quiz, see how you do on this 10-question supplemental bonus, and send me your answers. And regardless of how many you have correct, I am going to give you 10 extra points on a bonus. So on a quiz, 10 bonus points. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Our topic today is an appropriate one, seeing as we are in the craziest event of my lifetime, of the pandemic, the COVID-19 disease. Our topic today is diseases. So let's see how you do. Question number 1. When doctors become a doctor, they must take an oath called the Hippocratic Oath, and it takes its name from the most famous doctor of antiquity, a fellow by the name of Hippocrates, who was a Greek. And in the Hippocratic Oath, most famously, it begins, "First do no blank." Fill in that blank. That is the first job and the first order of every physician, every doctor. First do no blank. Tell me, what is that blank? Number 2, the COVID-19 disease is continuously killing thousands upon thousands of people who contract it across the world in the United States. However, the disease that kills the most people in the United States year after year is what disease? What disease do you think more than any other? And it's actually the number one killer, more than car wrecks or accidents or anything like that. But what disease is responsible for taking more lives of Americans on a year-to-year basis than any other? Number 3, the American Lung Association was created originally to fight against a disease that obviously affected the lungs. And it was not lung cancer. As a matter of fact, it was a disease that used to be known as consumption tuberculosis, or TB. However, I would argue, most famous test to determine if someone was suffering from TB is actually a test named after an organ of the body that is not the lungs. Thus, what kind of test, a blank test, would you perhaps have to take to determine if you are suffering from tuberculosis or TB? I'll give you somewhat of a hint. It's a rather large organ. So what kind of organ names that test? Number 4, thinking back to my time in health, which we all have to take in high school, one of the more uncomfortable units and gross units is the unit that you have over STDs, which of course stand for sexually transmitted diseases. However, before the term and the acronym STD became popular, STDs were known by another term that actually has a mythological origin. So that is then the question. What is another term named after, from a mythological origin, named after a particular god or goddess, did we used to know of STDs as? Number 5, this is an easy one, or at least it should be. The virus that is, of course, responsible for COVID-19 is a coronavirus, a particular kind of virus that's transmitted from animals to humans. What does the Latin word corona mean? And the reason why the virus has this term is because of what the virus looks like under a microscope. So the Latin word corona means what English word in English? Number 6. A disease that I really only encountered in the participation that I have in Quiz Bowl is a disease known as Tay-Sachs disease. Tay-Sachs disease disproportionately affects a particular ethnicity known as Ashkenazi. What more generalized ethnicity are the Ashkenazi? That's the question. And unfortunately, Ashkenazi are rather susceptible to Tay-Sachs disease. The next one is number 7. I have been rather fortunate in that, and I always freely admit this, that I teach the best students at Eastside High School. And so it is an inevitability that when they name the top 10, I will have taught several of them. And I'm fortunate enough as well that they have at times, frequently over the last 10-15 years, one of them asked me to come with them to the top 10 ceremony that is held for all 3 high schools by the Rotary Club. And the Rotary Club has a mission of the 20th century, now even moving into the 21st century, of eradicating a particular disease. This disease was rather terrible, in especially the early parts of the 20th century. It used to be known as infantile paralysis, and very often you had to be hooked up to a iron lung breathing machine for it. FDR famously, unfortunately, suffered from it, and Jonas Salk came up with a vaccine for it. Polio. Your question, however, is that there's no more cases of polio in the United States. However, there are actually only 2 countries on Earth that overwhelmingly account for all polio cases, and the Rotary Club is trying its best to try and even eradicate it there. They're both Asian countries, and so your question is, name either of the 2 countries responsible still for the cases of polio that we have around the world. Question number 8. And you have to be specific on this one. In that, very often there are certain organizations, like I mentioned earlier, the American Lung Association, which fights against not just lung cancer, but emphysema and other sorts of lung diseases. Well, one organization that is fighting a particular disease is the Susan Komen Foundation, named after Susan Komen. And what is the disease that that foundation particularly is fighting against? Number 9. A coronavirus is a virus that obviously, as I said before this one, from animals to humans. Well, there is one disease that most humans, 90% of us, have an immunity against, but that disease is also able to be contracted by one other animal on Earth, and it is the armadillo. And so what is that disease that can afflict either armadillos and humans and can be passed back and forth between the 2? To give you a huge hint on this disease is frequently mentioned in the Bible. Then your very last question, you have a choice for your answers. It's either 1, I would argue that the Black Death or bubonic plague is the most famous epidemic or pandemic in human history up until this one. And it ravaged Europe during the medieval period. And whereas a third of all Europeans died, and it, of course, affected not just Europe, but other places as well. And so you can either answer A. In a particular century, the years 47, 48, and 49 were by far the most devastating 3-year period for the bubonic plague. Either name me the century of which the years 47, 48, and 49 were the most devastating, or you can name both animals that were more responsible for the transmission of bubonic plague than any other. There were 2 animals particularly, and so name either the year, or the century, I should say, of 47, 48, 49, in which bubonic plague had its most devastating results, or you can name both of the animals that were more responsible than any other for the transmission of the bubonic plague. So, again, thank those of you who've been doing this stuff on Canvas. Keep it up. I'm going to try to do the best that I can and be as generous as I can to help you improve your average and to continue to get better. Most of us are going to be together again in Latin 2, so do the best you can to keep up with material, keep up with the language itself, engage with it. I know from my own personal experience, I have a degree in ancient Greek, but I'm terrible at it now because I've not really engaged with it as much as what I should have over the last 20 years. And so it is an absolute true cliche. If you don't use it, you lose it. So please keep up with Canvas. Do the stuff that is on there. If you have any questions or if I can help you in any way, just let me know. If you want tomorrow to join me for a class meeting of Latin 1 at 1 p.m., I'm sending out the link tomorrow. I'd be happy to see you then. Other than that, I hope that you enjoyed the supplemental bonus. Send me your answers. Make sure that you didn't use any sort of outside resources. Do the best you can yourself. And if you do, send me your answers. I'll give you 10 extra points on a quiz. I hope to hear from you, and I hope you are doing okay. If you need anything, you let me know. And until then, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. If not, I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much. Bye.